Hello everyone, welcome to a DCS World video, a digital combat simulator world. Today we are taking out some weapons helicopter. So this is the first module that I owned in DCS World. I actually got it all over to a console channel, but actually I have to say that the Apache is actually quite a good helicopter. In terms of safety, you can actually quite effective with it with a relatively basic setup. You are going to need some rudder pedals. I don't recommend flying too long helicopters with the twister because a lot of helicopters don't have great autopilot, or the trim means that you need to keep an eye on it. So it means that you spend a lot of time holding the stick in a natural position. So if you've got rudder pedals, it's a good place to go. You don't need a complex HOTAS stick. You will need some sort of mechanism for the collective, which is essentially to the power to lift and raise, so treat it as the accelerator in a car or the thrust in an aircraft. But in my first stick it was basically a tiny little paddle, and it worked okay. I've got a much bigger setup now, but you don't need a massive number of buttons to be effective in the Apache. It has a lot of complicated options. So in the MFDs you can mouse your way into all sorts of detail, set up the map, set up waypoints, do all that sort of complicated stuff. Change the radios. There's a lot there. With the fire control radar you probably do need a few more buttons, but I don't really use the fire control radar that much. I use the AI who's in the front seat, which is George. You can see here that I've taken off and I'm heading off towards the trucks. Now the Apache actually, from my perspective, has a pretty good flight model, and what I mean by good flight model is I mean that it's easy to fly. So I'm swinging around a little bit. That's just because I'm a bit slow, but I'm getting myself set up to get off to transition off towards the bad guys. I don't find that there's a major issue taking off and landing. I don't have nearly the number of prangs that I would have, let's say, in the Hind or the Mi-8, or the Black Hawk has been a particular problem child for me. But the Apache has been just a fantastic little beast to fly. So what we do is we're flying. So with the basic controls you can fly it, and controlling the AI requires basically 5 keys or 5 buttons. And if you're keen, you can actually set up your number pad to do, and get a little sort of separate number pad that's on a wired number pad for about $10. It's just a number pad part of the keyboard. You use that as a little control panel, and with that you can be very effective. Now here we're firing Hellfire missiles. These are actually radar missiles.
Lasers on.
Fire the next target. I've set them on free fire.
Lasers off.
Means that as soon as I tell him which target to go for, he will.
Blazing.
See, we're just going for it. We're just launching missile after missile.
Lasers off.
These trucks obviously are firing back.
And sleep.
7 of the 8 missiles in position. And all it is
Target sight.
in an area, working towards the recognize, ordered by the most.
Blazing.
You tell them what to shoot at.
Lasers on.
Shoot at it. Very minimal number of controls needed to.
Tracking
I
target.
have flown from the front seat. DCS, but that means that pilots
Laser on. Aircraft on. Lasers on. Good effects on target.
But if you're so you can see that
Gun lost. Slaving.
the way this simulation is very primary, so it's like 5 years. You don't get the sort of just the
Target destroyed.
humans to sort of bring down lots of explosion causes, so you don't sort of get the degradation that you'd get from a whole lot of area effect weapons, like you see artillery being used in the Ukraine war, for example, It's not about killing everything, it's
Slave.
about basically just attrition sort of thing. But anyway, so DCS really does favour guided missiles and accurate weapons like guns.
Deslaving.
So you'll see a lot of helicopter pilots
Target
in
acquired.
DCS. They won't carry the rockets. I try to carry them just so I can get my practice
Good effects
in.
on target.
They are fairly good at taking down
And
the final remnants of
Roger, engaging.
of an enemy unit, usually the infantry.
Good effects, good effects.
Just because you don't actually have to
Deslaving.
hit them to cause the damage. So here we are taking out the final target. I get George to do all the gunning for me, and we get back to it. It's very accurate.
Target destroyed.
The way it works is that the gun will point wherever your head is pointing. Now that may sound really awesome, but if you ever try to... Your head is not as accurate as your hand. So let's put it that way. So if I'm ever dedicated in the front seat, I'll probably load up a new instance of DCS with head tracking turned off and use the mouse for the gun, and then then you're insanely accurate. With the head tracking, what you'll find is that you'll sort of look around the spot. Sometimes what I do is lock the head in position and then just walk the traces onto the target. It can be a bit of a struggle. So or you can just lock the gun. I think you can get the gun to lock in the forward position, so you can just aim the entire helicopter like you would for the Hind, which has just a forward facing gun. So I've done all the damage that we need to those pesky trucks. They've learned their lesson. I hope they don't come back. And I'm heading back towards the base. That little orange smoke there represents the loading zone for the helicopters. That's going to be my target for landing. Giving a bit of a look around for the DCS World. This is a Caucasus map, so this is the free map. If you download DCS, you'll get 2 free modules, which is the SU-25 training version and a training unarmed version of the P-51 Mustang. But there's a couple of free modules out there, and maybe I'll talk about those in another video. So you can get your sort of feet wet and decide whether or not it's for you. Personally, I've loved it. I like the detail. I like the fact that I have to get things right. I'm not particularly good mil-sim, so I don't do really good runway calls, so helicopters sort of suit me, because I think with aircraft there's a bit more expectation that you tell people what you're doing and you fit in with all the ATC stuff so that you don't smash into each other on the runway. Whereas helicopters just sort of seem to get a bit of latitude as long as you don't cross the active runway. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come in for a landing in the Apache. My recommendation, the Apache is pretty docile to land, but I would still recommend, if you're learning, to land with a bit of forward movement. Most helicopters, they play best when you land treat them a little bit like an aircraft, because what that does is it means that you don't risk getting to the state where you descend into your own rotor wash. So if you're quite high and you stand vertically, you might be tempted to descend a little bit quickly, but what will happen is that you'll descend into the own downwash of your rotor blades, which has a compounding effect and is very difficult to resolve. You actually have to fly out of it. So putting up the collective, all it does is it creates more downwash that you fly into. So what I'm doing here is a turn. I've just decided to turn just before the tree line to bleed off the speed. Trying to keep my altitude steady. The other thing about the Apache is that heads-up display. A lot of helicopters don't get it, so you're trying to keep an eye on the gauges or the dials. And the vortex ring state, which is the situation where you drop out of the sky when you come into your own rotor wash, isn't over-modeled with the Apache, so you don't end up in that situation as much as you would, let's say, with some of the Russian helicopters. So in the final stages, coming into land here, just keeping a bit of forward speed movement, about 24 knots. You can see on the bottom left. That's pretty good. Starting to swing around a little bit at slower speeds. You don't get the same sort of, the air running past the fuselage doesn't have the same steadying effect that you'll have at higher speed. Touchdown, come into land, apply the brake. I think the handbrake is now, I'm going to pull it on. Am I going to pull it on? No, I'm going to leave it off. What I'm doing now is I'm just lowering the power. So you normally run around on full power and use collective to change the rotor blades. There you go, I've got my handbrake on. I'm going to do the final shutdown of the engines. You can see all the screens went dark because the generators, insufficient power going to the generators. And that's it, a nice tidy shutdown. Well, not really a tidy shutdown of the Apache. A lot of games or a lot of servers will ask you to shut down in order to basically you'll gain points for doing things, but you'll have to shut down in order to keep the points. So it's worth something to learn, although Windows N does a shutdown. Anyway, so there's a quick flight out with the Apache. Thoroughly recommended as a helicopter. Actually pretty beginner friendly. I hope you found that useful. Thanks for watching.